How's my favorite class today? Today, boys and girls, we're going to finish off our unit on crime and deviance with a quick overview of a component, a part of a book named The Gift of Fear. Gift of Fear was written by a gentleman named Galvin De Becker. Galvin De Becker has a firm in the United States, and his focus is on preventing violence. He's done a lot of work in this area. He's worked with women's groups across the United States. He's even helped design a program to protect the President of the United States, trained Navy SEALs and worked with the U.S. Secret Service. He's done a lot of work in law enforcement. So I'm going to read you a story that was told to him by a person that survived a criminal ordeal. And she spoke to him in his private practice. He has a private practice as well. So I'm going to read the story, and then we're going to go through it and see if we can pick out certain things that are what this De Becker gentleman refers to as pre-incident indicators, or little caveats that would lead you to believe something might happen. Okay, so I'm going to start with the story. That afternoon, in an effort to get all her shopping done in one trip, Kelly had overestimated what she could comfortably carry home. Justifying her decision, she struggled with heavy bags, and she reminded herself that making 2 trips would have meant walking around after dark, and she was too careful about her safety for that. And as she climbed the few stairs to her apartment building, she saw that the door had been left unlatched again. Her neighbors, she said, just didn't get it. And even though their lack of security annoyed her, this time she was glad because it saved her the trouble of getting at her key. She closed the door behind her. She pushed it until she heard it click. She is certain she heard the latch click. Next came 4 flights of stairs, and she wanted to do it in one trip. Near the top of the 3rd landing, one of the bags ripped, tore open, dispensing cans of cat food. They rolled down the stairs almost playfully, as if they were trying to get away from her. The cans in the lead paused at the 2nd floor landing. The can in the lead paused at the 2nd floor landing, and Kelly watched as it literally turned the corner, gained some speed, and began its seemingly mindful hop down the next flight of stairs and out of sight. Got it! I'll bring it up! Someone called out, and Kelly didn't like that voice. Right from the start, something just sounded wrong to her. But this friendly-looking young guy came bounding up the steps, collecting cans all along the way. He said, "Let me give you a hand." No thanks, I've got it." "You don't look like you got it." "What floor are you going to?" he asked. She paused before answering him. "The 4th, but I'm okay, really." He wouldn't hear a word of it, and at this point, he had balanced a collection of cans between his chest and one arm. "I'm going to the 4th floor too," he said. I'm late, but it's not my fault. I have a broken watch, so let's not just stand here. Give me that." And he reached out and tugged for the heavier bag she was holding. And she repeated, "No, really, thanks, but I've got it." Still holding on to the grocery bag, he said, "You know, there's such a thing as being too proud, dear." For a moment, Kelly didn't let go of the bag, but then she did. In this seemingly insignificant exchange between cordial strangers and the recipient of his courtesy was the signal to him and to her that she was willing to trust him. And the bag passed from her control to his, and so did she. "We better hurry," he said as he walked up the stairs ahead of Kelly. "We got a hungry cat up there." And even though he seemed to want nothing more at that moment than to be helpful, she was apprehensive about this guy, and for no good reason, she thought. He was friendly and gentlemanly, and he felt guilty about her suspicions. She didn't want to be the kind of person who distrusted everybody, so they were next approaching the door to her apartment. "Did you know a cat can live for 3 weeks without eating?" he asked. "And I'll tell you how I know that. I learned that tidbit when I once forgot that I promised to feed a gentleman's cat, a friend of mine who was out of town for a couple of weeks." Kelly was now standing at the door to her apartment, which she had just opened. "I'll take it from here," she said, hoping he'd hand her the groceries, accept her thanks, and be on his way. Instead, he said, "Oh no, I didn't come this far to let you have another cat food spill." And when she still hesitated to let him in the door, he laughed understandingly. "Hey, we can leave the door open like ladies do in old movies. I'll go in and put this stuff down, I promise." Well, she let him in, but he did not keep his promise. So, what are some of the pre-incident indicators you can get from this story which might help you in years to come. So what are they? Well, according to Galvin De Becker, forced teaming is one. He used the words us and he used the words we. Now, if you listen to the story, he had just met this person. Using the terms us and we in a sentence doesn't really fit. He didn't know the girl. What else? Charm and niceness, another pre-incident indicator. Niceness does not equate to goodness. Just because someone seems nice doesn't mean they really are. Too many details. When people lie, even if it sounds credible to you, it doesn't to them. And they keep talking. They keep adding details and adding details and adding details. And that is a pre-incident indicator. That tells you something is wrong. For the too many details story, pre-incident indicator, I have a great story. One time, a few years ago, in sociology, I had two students who had left during the lunch hour. It was during a double class before and after lunch. And they had left for the lunch hour and drove to Sydney and went to Burger King. Taking such a long time for them to get back, they were 45 minutes late for the class after lunch. And when they knocked on the door and asked to enter, I said, come on in the door. And the two students were a student named, we'll just use hypothetical names. We'll say Josh Eagles, and we'll say Christian Jackson. Excuse me. These two hypothetical students, Josh and Christian, came into my classroom and told me that they had a flat tire. And I thought, it's not a problem, it can happen. Sit down, gentlemen. So they went to sit down, and then Josh kept talking. The hypothetical person we'll call Josh. And he kept talking and told me about how the tire was very difficult to remove, and then the spare wouldn't fit, and then they had to get a jack, and the jack didn't work, and he had to call his dad, and his dad came, and his dad didn't have the right jack, and he was going on. And when I heard him use too many details, it occurred to me that he was lying. So when Josh sat down, I moved the person that was next to him, his buddy who just walked in the door, over to the other side of the classroom. And I gave them both a sheet of paper. And I asked them to write down on the sheet of paper which tire was flat. Too many details works. If someone is giving you too many details, they're lying. And it turned out these two students were lying. They just spent an extra 45 minutes at Burger King in Sydney. Anyway, that's my story on too many details. Typecasting. Pre-incident indicator, according to Galvin De Becker's book, is typecasting. Typecasting usually involves a slight insult that is easy to refute. I've seen this used by people selling cars. The person selling the car would say to the person looking to buy the car, well, I don't think this car is for you. It's expensive, and I don't know if you're up to paying that much money for a car. It's probably above your pay grade. Well, when someone hears a slight insult, the natural human reaction is to refute that insult. So be cognizant of that, because people can use it against you. Loan sharking. If I am good to you and give you something, it is human nature that you will want to return that favor. That is human nature. That is ingrained in us. We are social beings. So loan sharking is a technique people use to get you to give them something. We saw loan sharking in the story where the gentleman actually took the bags and helped the young lady get to her apartment. So now this young lady feels as though she is in some way indebted to him. Loan sharking. The unsolicited promise. If someone uses a promise, if a promise comes out of nowhere, you have to ask yourself one thing. Why is this person trying to convince me of something that I don't believe? Pretty simple. The unsolicited promise. Discounting the word no as a pre-incident indicator. No is a complete sentence. If you use the word no and someone discounts that, you have to ask yourself, why is this person trying to convince me of something I already told them I don't want? Why? Think about that. Last but not least, trust your inner voice. According to Galvin De Becker, and according to my own experience in life, trusting your inner voice is probably the most important of all the pre-incident indicators. When we learned way back at the start of the course about Sigmund Freud divided the mind into three component parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. Well, sports psychologists have worked on this extensively since the 1970s, and most of them now qualify the brain or quantify the brain or divide the brain into three component parts as well: the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the self-image. The part that they work with the most, or should, is the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the source of all your mental power. Everything you know is stored in the subconscious. Everything you do is stored in the subconscious. Everything your body does is stored in the subconscious. Like right now, you're not thinking of breathing at all. You're not thinking about breathing because your subconscious mind is breathing for you. It's as you get more excited and need more oxygen, it speeds up your breathing process so that you get more oxygen into your body, and you're not even aware that your subconscious mind is doing it. Your subconscious mind is also doing other things, and its goal is to protect you. That's its job. The best story I have in relation to my subconscious was a few years ago. I was in Mexico with my family, and I'd hired a guide, and we were going out into the jungle, and we were looking for some certain ruins. And as we were going through the jungle, we were walking down a trail, and jungles aren't like they are in the movies. Typically, jungles you can see for quite a distance. It's like walking through the hardwoods. Most of the vegetation, foliage and stuff is living in the upper canopy above you, so you can see fairly long distances most of the time. So my son is about 4 at the time, and he's walking ahead of me, and he's walking around the path, and he's walking over towards a puddle. And actually the puddle is quite large, maybe a small pond. And I, for no reason whatsoever, froze, and then in an instant ran over to my son and picked up my son, and I have no idea why I did that. And I'm starting to feel kind of stupid. I just felt incredible fear. And I'm thinking, why did I do that? And just then, the guide grabbed my arm, and he says to me, "Oh, thank God you got the boy. I meant to tell you, there's been an alligator hanging around that pond," or a crocodile, I forget which, hanging around that pond the last week or two. Now, I never saw an alligator. I never saw any signs of an alligator. But something indicated to my subconscious that something was wrong. And that's why I went and grabbed my son. And that's the power of the subconscious. Its job is to protect you. I hope that you guys learned a little bit from this story, and I hope someday it helps you out. Boys and girls, that's it. Have a nice day.